Stop telling people that they are not allowed to be upset that there is no more village for them and their children. Stop telling people that. Y'all act like so it's like I was born 94. So with the way that the family split up and the way that everybody kind of separated, I mean, there's still some groups that get together, but there's a whole lot of separation. In the 90s, in the early 2000s, as a child, of course, I couldn't tell. You get older, you got older cousins telling you stuff that you didn't know that was going on back then. Woo, 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 da, 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 da. So here's where shit gets a little complicated. You got the 70s and the 80s babies knowing like without a shadow of a doubt, they were the ones that knew that a lot of the stuff that was going on was wrong. They had to play along with the narrative longer than the 90s babies and the early 2000s babies. So like half of them are still stuck in those ways, and half of them are still causing and wreaking havoc. But that's a conversation for another day. So here we are, the 90s and 2000s babies, the 70s and the 80s babies. They know what for a lot of them, tried to protect us from or try to hinder us from, for the ones that did. Because, half of them did, the other half, they were part of the problem. But we're talking about the ones that did, or the ones who were knowingly pointing out or knowingly going against the grain of the family, aka the black sheeps. When the 90s and the 2000s babies start having babies, you got the 70s and the 80s babies screaming at us saying we're entitled, that they didn't have this, we didn't have this, they used to do this, you weren't old enough to be there, and do. But I thought y'all's purpose of pushing all that shit to the side and trying to keep us away from it, I thought the reason y'all was doing that was so y'all could protect us, and in turn continue to protect us and continue to guide us. Instead, they get jealous because they feel like we had it better than they did. But it's just how shit lined up. I just don't understand how they get upset that it's just like when we get older and we realize how much some of these 70s and 80s babies was doing for us 90s and 2000s babies. It's just like, dang, like you knew that this day was going to come where I was going to lean on you for anything, and you're just not available because instead of you being glad that we don't have to go through some things y'all went through, you're mad because you feel like y'all should have had it better, or y'all should have been in our position. But we have a whole nother different thing that we have to deal with, because the generational curses that y'all chose not to break, we are being forced to break. So everybody has gotten something sour out of this deal. Regardless, us 90s and 2000s babies, we're learning that friends and that family don't always have to be blood, that we can find support in our communities. They don't have to be our kinfolk. We can't just depend on kinfolk, because some of our kinfolk, they're still mad, and that's okay. But yeah, we're allowed to have attitude.